Sleepy Hollow and Gotham have each found an audience in the increasingly crowded field of supernatural and fantasy detective shows. Both share many of the same characteristics: breakneck pacing, over-the-top tone that borders on camp,
If you let this hair go frizzy, you will be.
a central detective duo. But while Sleepy Hollow largely succeeds at balancing quality storytelling with supernatural elements, Gotham largely falls flat, and the difference between the two illustrates the strengths and weaknesses of the genre.
Tell me what's going on.
Throughout fantasy fiction, stories like these often employ an outsider device, where one main character is ignorant of the fantastical elements of the world and is introduced to these elements by a more experienced character.
Who are you? What do you do?
What do you think?
This tool essentially uses the new character's learning experiences to teach the audience about the rules, details, and history of this fictional world.
I make this look good.
Sleepy Hollow doubles down on this device by making both leads outsiders. Detective Abby Mills begins the series unaware of the supernatural world that Ichabod Crane eventually guides her through, while Crane, newly resurrected after 200 years, learns modern behavior and technology from her.
Surprise party.
And why must your era celebrate terror with dessert?
Having both characters guide each other creates a rich, balanced, often funny dynamic as they grow to rely on each other's strengths and know each other's weaknesses.
Harbinger of the apocalypse takes a human bride through a gruesome binding ritual.
Not exactly up to Martha Stewart standards.
Martha who?
She's big in the wedding industry.
Wedding industry. So the blessed right between a man and a woman.
It's become a billion-dollar business and some great guilty pleasure TV.
Gotham, on the other hand, pairs naive, idealistic Jim Gordon with jaded, self-preserving Harvey Bullock,
Somebody takes a cop's gun, you shoot him.
then shows Gordon's idealism to be a weakness and a liability at almost every turn.
Come back to Gotham.
I told you never to come back here!
But mostly it's Gordon's consistent unwillingness to adapt or compromise his values that make him come off as a dull, stiff patsy,
No, I can't do that.
and make the central detective relationship that should be guiding the show feel frustrating and one-sided.
That's because I'm always in a room full of idiots.
Fantasy and comic book worlds must build a rich and detailed mythology to make otherwise unbelievable feats feel convincing or even natural.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Though its mythology draws piecemeal from several seemingly unrelated fantasy, religious, and historical traditions,
It's the Codex Chakos.
We are talking about Benjamin Franklin,
General Washington.
She's a witch.
Moloch,
He's the guardian of purgatory.
I am a sin eater.
and the frickin' Horseman of War. Curse of the Wendigo,
Pied Piper.
He's creating a demon army.
Benedict Arnold.
Cursed coil of the Roman Empire.
the breakneck pacing actually works to the show's advantage here, as viewers aren't given too much time to dwell on what does and doesn't make perfect sense. But Gotham relies heavily on viewers' previous Batman knowledge. Look, it's a guy named Enigma, and he likes riddles. Get it? He's gonna be the Riddler. Never mind that his character is dumb and obnoxious and bad at his job.
What kind of gun did Don't ask. Just tell.
And yet, despite all this, Gotham steadfastly refuses to be a show about Batman. It seems obsessively committed with providing details and Easter eggs for Batman fans, while failing to further define the perspectives and motivations of its characters, which makes it all the more tedious and silly. Speaking of which, Sleepy Hollow draws on a Joss Whedon-esque tradition of leaning into camp and silliness, giving situations that demand levity extra humor and a light touch. So the show has a little leeway to be absurd, and by winking at its own dumbness, it makes that dumbness enjoyable.
I never stop fighting. And none of that recorded.
But Gotham presents itself with a grim Christopher Nolan-inspired seriousness, which makes its campy elements even more unintentionally laughable.
Is rising into the air above Gotham, attached to a weather balloon.
Still, genre-wise, these shows are very similar. They're both doing big action fantasies welded to the tropes of a more conservative police drama. But Gotham's self-seriousness and slavish devotion to the assumed popularity of a character who doesn't even appear in the show relegates it to an exercise in brand extension. Sleepy Hollow, though part of this current vogue for comic book storytelling, invests in original material and an interesting central character dynamic, and it isn't afraid to acknowledge its own preposterousness.
I can see why this might be popular.
This all combines to successfully sell us a world where the reincarnated Ichabod Crane fights the possessed demon headless horseman who also happens to be one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Sure, I'll buy it.